Well, good evening once again. Day 202 of the Biden administration. It's good to be back, and let's see, where were we? Oh, yes, it seems the news has gotten worse. The nation is now fully in the grip of an escalating health crisis brought on by this relentless new Delta variant. Tonight, the U.S. reached a new milestone in this pandemic. Over 36 million cases. We are now averaging over 100,000 new cases a day. If that number sounds familiar, it's because that's the rate where we were seeing last winter. Just over 6 weeks ago, at the beginning of last month, the pandemic, as you'll recall, appeared to be in the rearview mirror for much of our country. And now, tonight, every state is experiencing an increase in infections. The situation is especially grave, especially acute in the Sun Belt. Florida recorded over 28,000 new cases on Sunday alone. Officials in Austin, Texas, were brutally honest about conditions there, where people are now getting warnings on their phones. And in Florida, people there are being warned with public service announcements.
The situation in Austin is dire. Healthcare facilities are open, but resources are limited due to a surge in cases.
I encourage everybody to please take this Delta variant very seriously due to the transmissibility. It is incredibly contagious, and our children are getting sick. I can't do this.
That's how that public service announcement goes. This all comes as Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, staying on brand, is threatening to withhold paychecks from those school officials who defy his ban on mask mandates. Now, one former CDC director is slamming those state leaders like DeSantis and others like him, who imposed restrictions on strategies that are meant to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Places that are taking a stance that's really contrary to science, you have to call that out. There are two ways to fight this pandemic, with science or without science. You save a lot more lives with science.
NBC News reporting tonight that increasing numbers of children are becoming infected as Delta outbreaks rip through the U.S. Pediatricians note that household infections are driving the illnesses up among kids. And this is a new dynamic. Children's hospitals around the country reporting dramatic spikes in children needing medical care. Amid all this, the push for vaccine mandates is gaining steam. Washington State Governor Jay Inslee has just announced one of those mandates for most state employees and healthcare workers. Earlier today, the Pentagon said it would seek to have a vaccine mandate in place for most of our servicemen and women by mid-September. Some Republican senators were adamant in objecting to the move.
The federal government ought to get the living daylights out of our life and stop telling us how to lead our lives.
We should not be mandating this. I think there's some legitimate concerns on the part of people not to be forced into participating in the largest drug trial in history, which right now a mandate would be.
Meanwhile, Dr. Fauci had a warning about what could happen if we lose this race to stop this Delta strain from spreading.
If you allow the virus to freely circulate in 93 million people and give it the opportunity to find vulnerable targets, you give it the opportunity to mutate and form another variant. The more you prevent the spread, the less likelihood that the virus will mutate. If it does mutate to something that does evade the vaccine, then we really got a problem.
Where are we, do you think, in terms of the scope of this pandemic? There are reports afoot that we need more substantial masks and not to go without, certainly.
Yeah, Brian, that's absolutely right. So if there could be a theme to what we're seeing, it's younger, sicker, quicker. And I think that references what you've noted about more children being affected. We don't think that this Delta variant is resulting in a more severe disease, a severe version of COVID, that is, but we do need to see. And to your point, in order to protect children who are not eligible to be vaccinated, and certainly while we're getting more people vaccinated, we know that masks can make a difference, and a high quality mask, as close as possible to a medical grade. Anything that you'll actually wear over your nose and mouth can make a difference with such a highly contagious variant. And make no mistake, Brian, we want as many people to get shots today, but we know that with over 100,000 cases a day, a shot today is definitely going to save your life. But we need to do that combined with masks and other measures to get that steep decline that we know we can get. Other countries have been able to do it, and we hope to follow suit soon.
Lisa, try to give us, if you could, a read on the level of concern and surprise, especially among level-headed politicians in Washington, the same surprise that we're all dealing with, that this latest spike in this pandemic is upon us.
Well, I think certainly for Democrats, this is being met with some political alarm. The White House has seen the president's numbers drop a little bit as the Delta variant had spread. And, you know, I'm hearing a lot from Democrats in competitive states, competitive districts, who are now heading home for that congressional recess. And they wanted to talk about the economy. A Democrat told me back in the spring that the game plan for the midterms was going to be needles and checks. And people don't want to talk about the economy. They're worried about the spread of COVID. And some Democrats have even told me that they're frustrated with the CDC. They're worried about mixed messaging. They feel that the White House's economic messaging isn't strong enough, and they don't have a good answer on how they're going to control the spread. And what we've seen from the White House is they've been a lot more aggressive about specifically calling out Republican governors for being vaccine hesitant, for refusing to put in mask mandates and taking other measures. But at the end of the day, this pandemic is spreading on President Biden's watch, and the White House will own this if it, continues to escalate.